you know what? Let me listen to like the what I made last night or what I made the night before, something like that. And then I was just like, damn, this is really good.
Yo, what's up? This is Toru, and in a way, so are you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a music producer, artist, and entrepreneur. I make music for that space between the dance floor and the bedroom, which has been streamed millions of times and been licensed by brands big and small, including companies like Apple. I believe that regardless of what you produce, whether it be music, art, physical goods, or even spreadsheets, you have a process, whether you know it or not. To explore this further, I created the Producer Head podcast. Producer Head is a place to have conversations with other producers about their experience and process to share what works and what doesn't, to help each of us learn and improve our own processes along the way. Today's guest is Wrex Mason, a hip-hop producer from Hartford, Connecticut, currently residing in Brooklyn, New York. Wrex began producing at age 11, and for the past 13 years, he has released both solo and collaborative projects with a wide range of artists. Above all else, Wrex prioritizes being a perpetual student of the craft and a stark advocate for creative independence. His influences include J Dilla, Madlib, Flying Lotus, DJ Premier, Easy Mo B, Ninth Wonder, and Pete Rock. RexMason.com is a one-stop shop for Wrex's discography, merch, and marketplace for artists in search of beats. Welcome to part 2 of this 2-part episode with Wrex Mason. If you haven't already, I invite you to listen to part 1 of this conversation, where Wrex shares his sketchbook mentality and his philosophy on how to keep good and bad days in perspective. Today, in part 2 of this conversation, Wrex shares how he identified the grooves of his self-talk to improve his practice and his art, how he combines structure and free-flowing time to capture inspiration, and what producers can learn from the world of cooking. Wrex also emphasizes the prioritization of making music for yourself first. With all of that out of the way, we are ready for part 2 of this 2-part conversation with Wrex Mason.
Every single day you wake up, it's a different you. And like I have this phrase, and I think I told you about it once, where it's like, I just remind myself that there's a yesterday, there's a today, and there's going to be a tomorrow. So you might not, and basically meaning that, like, look, you were on fire yesterday, or maybe you weren't on fire yesterday, but you're on fire today. Who knows what can happen tomorrow? Part of the fun of making music is like just like stretching your imagination and really digging into that imagination bag and being like, okay, what can I come up with? And I realized that I couldn't come up with anything if I was being harsh on myself. So I just, instead of, saying, oh, you need to do XYZ, otherwise XYZ, instead of like giving myself this phony list of consequences that only lives in my brain, I just tell myself, look, you didn't get it today, but there's a yesterday, today was today, tomorrow's tomorrow.
It's cool because like when you say that, it makes me think it's like a different way to back into the idea of like, one, stay in the present, and two, by staying in the present by reminding yourself that there's many other moments outside of it. Oh yes, and also like not letting having a good or a bad day become too big, right? Because if you allow having a good day and being on fire to make you feel really big, you can really tear yourself down the next day when you don't feel good, right? So I really like that idea of just not letting any of those good or bad days become too big or defining, like, personally. And you also mentioned me at one point, man, which I think is a cool piece of this, which is linked to like kind of just being encouragement and just like proof. So when you're having a bad day, to listen to music that you've already made that you like, to remind yourself like, hey, I can do this. How did you arrive at that?
I arrived at that when I was having a rough night, and I was just like, I kind of took a step back, and I was just like, well, damn, I'm being really harsh to myself, because I was telling myself all sorts of crazy shit, like, oh, you fucking suck, like you're the worst fucking producer, blah, 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 blah. Like I was saying a lot of that kind of crazy shit, and then I was like, you know what? Let me listen to like the what I made last night or what I made the night before, something like that. And then I was just like, damn, this is really good, you know? And it was just a reminder that, look, I'm not all of these things that I'm telling myself in the moment. it was like, it was like, okay, it goes back to the yesterday, today, tomorrow thing where it's like, all right, I made this yesterday. I wasn't able to make it today, but I could possibly make it tomorrow. We'll see, but for right now, I'm gonna like vibe to this, groove to this, and sometimes I'll, go back and like add certain things, and those would be like my windows of opportunity to like already build on something that I know is good. But sometimes I'll just like, sit and listen to a 4 to 8 bar loop for 20, 30 minutes. That's where that came from.
Yeah, that's another feeling. Connected to this is sort of like some days it works and some days it doesn't, right? And you never know, going in, you never know which day it's going to be when you start. So I'm wondering, how does that impact the way that you approach your sessions of producing? For instance, are you somebody who has a really regimented routine, or are you somebody who's like waiting for inspiration to strike and then you make something? Is it a combination of the two? Is it neither of those things?
Typically, my routine will be I'll wake up, do the work that I have for like my 9 to 5 during the day. I'll chill, for a little while, maybe play on like PlayStation with some of my friends, make dinner, watch TV for a little while, and then I'll like get to, working on beats at around like 9:30 or 10, and then go until like 1 or 1:30. When it comes to like beats and everything, I typically start out by either messing with a new toy I just downloaded, like say if it's like a new plugin, like as of late I've been working around with or messing around with addictive drums. Otherwise I'll like, just sit on YouTube or go through my records and listen out for samples and stuff. And if something catches my ear, then I'll get to work. Sometimes even if stuff doesn't catch my ear, if it's like, say if it's a sample that's intriguing, but I don't know what to do with it right here in the moment, I'll just like file it for later. So it's a bit of routine, but it's also like inspiration within that routine. I would say inspiration is a part of the routine.
Yeah, that's what's
That's what
up.
I'll say.
So it sounds like you create kind of like a space where you're kind of committed to like being like, this is music time in a sense, but it's not, but outside of that, it's not super structured, right? The inspiration might come, it might not.
Yeah.
But there's also that like kind of awareness to be like, all right, I don't have this right now, but I'm still gonna like save this because this might give me a spark at a later time.
And I do the same thing with beats too. Like, if I'm not feeling a beat right then and there, like if I feel like it has some legs or, some potential, I'll just like file it away for later and, just like mark it as like underscore change drums, underscore add bass, underscore add drums, or, something like that.
Oh wow, that's a cool idea because then you can search your computer kind of that way.
hmm
That's kind of dope. I like that. What do you think makes, to your ears, what makes a good sample?
Typically something with Rhodes. I'm a
Yeah.
sucker for Rhodes.
Yeah, I hear
Uh,
that.
yeah, or just like a really good like chord progression that you don't typically hear in like I guess mainstream music. I typically search in like the ambient sections, the jazz fusion, prog rock, that kind of thing, like where the musicality is just over 9,000, pun intended. Everything starts for me with like that melody.
Clearly, you're inspired by musical sources. You want to also talk about like inspiration from places that are non-musical?
I have, as of late, really taken inspiration from the culinary arts. So I grew up watching, like Rachel Ray, 30-minute meals. I grew up watching Chopped, but it was mostly just for fun, like back then, because like, my mom was always like getting ideas for recipes. My older sister was getting ideas for recipes, and I just like happened to be in the room. But as of late, I've really been getting into like the philosophy behind like or like certain chefs like philosophies and just like drawing the parallels to my own philosophy within music or just like any other musicians and just like kind of drawing parallels in the act of cooking itself to making beats because there's that phrase, oh, I'm cooking up in the studio right now, or some shit like that, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like there's a reason, whether people know it or not, like there is a reason why people say that. And it's because cooking, much like making beats, is an art form. And you can really like you can make beautiful things out of the simplest ingredients or a fuck ton of ingredients. It doesn't matter. Like, you just have this selection of ingredients, and you can make it into something that will blow people's minds, make people have an out of body experience, even if no one has like any emotion attached, even if they just do like kind of like this. You've probably done it after a good meal where you're just like where you just sit back in your chair like, damn, this is so good.
Absolutely.
Music does the same thing. you know
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, I do hear some of the parallels, like because some of what you're describing, I hear in terms of the comparison to some of the listening tracks, right? There's the maximalist, how many ingredients are in this thing versus something really, really simple and pared down in the more stripped down things. That's really cool. How would you describe your own philosophy in terms of making music and the way that you think about yourself as an artist?
I primarily make the music for me. It's something I do that is therapeutic or cathartic, and it makes me feel good at the end of the day. And it's the easiest way for me to channel my emotions. I can like really channel emotions into the music. I also like have this phrase, this phrase that I repeat from the great Madlib.
Yeah, shout out to Madlib.
He said in a documentary once, he said, I do this like for me first, for my health, and if people happen to like it, then like, damn, thank you, kind of thing. So
Yeah, that's
I
what's
would
up,
say
man.
I would say that describes my philosophy. It's just like I make it for myself, and like I think the plate tastes good. I think the beat sounds good. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if people happen to like it as well, cool. If people don't like it, okay, that's cool. Music is subjective, so is food. There are some people who are picky eaters, like myself. I used to be a picky eater. There's food connoisseurs that love everything they listen to, and then there's everyone in between.
Is this the documentary where it's like him, Cut Chemist, and like a bunch of other dudes, and they're like in Brazil and like record shopping in all kinds of places? Yeah,
That's the
so
one.
I need to try to dig that up. If I can find that, I'll link it in the show notes for everybody because that's really dope. I haven't seen that in a long time, but that's a really cool one. So within that, man, though, right, is like the confidence to make music for you and hope, and if other people like it, they like it. But in order to do that well, you gotta have taste. So how do you think you've developed taste? How would you? Because I think in my experience, a lot of the skills technically can be learned, right? You can watch your YouTube tutorials. There's trial and error. But if you don't have taste, if you don't have something in your head guiding you, music that you like or inspiration of some kind, how do you develop that taste and confidence to know that what you make has a chance to connect with other people?
It really just starts with being a student, I would say. Being a listener of music. I don't think there's any way somebody can be a musician without having a frame of reference or having somebody who inspired them to do music in the first place. And if so, point me in the direction of that person because I have a whole bunch of fucking questions. It's literally just, kind of being a student and like really, I mean, you don't have to get like all analytical if you don't want to. You don't have to, take a plethora of notes if you don't want to. Just using your ear, learning why somebody might like it, learning the intricate things like like the drums, how much swing is on the drums, learning bass lines, like like is somebody using live bass, is somebody using sub bass, that kind of thing. Just like just listening out for certain things, and especially like studying the people that you personally like. It's like I said, everyone starts from somewhere. Everyone starts with somebody that inspired them to get them into music in the first place. I mean, for me, I have a bunch of inspirators. Ka, there's Animas, there's Pete Rock, Rakim, DJ Premier, Dilla, Madlib, MF Doom, like so many people that I've just studied over the years. And I've taken bits and pieces from like everyone and like their styles and form my own. And I would say just, kind of building on all of those influences. Even if you happen to sound like somebody, I've gotten so many, comparisons in my time, and like, and that's fair. Like it's a fair comparison because, or like any comparison is fair because like I most likely probably pulled from that person's style.
But this is making me think is in general, if somebody were to basically limit what they listen to, are they at the same time sort of implicitly like imposing a ceiling on themselves in terms of what they could potentially do, make, or understand?
I don't think so, especially if you happen to keep it diverse. And there's even ways like say if you're, like a hip hop producer, there's different subgenres within this one big genre. So there's ways to even be diverse like within hip hop. Like, you could listen to like a Ka, you could listen to a Flying Lotus, you could listen to a Kendrick, a Pierre Bourne, even YNJ or Cash Cobain, you know what I mean? There's different ways to do this one thing that is like brought us together, brought, all of your listeners together. There's like so many ways to, so many like bits of inspiration to pull from. So I don't think you'd be putting a ceiling on yourself by, just listening to, or like be, taking bits and pieces from what you're already listening to. But I do also at the same time say that like it's good to have an open mind because and that's why, a lot of people use samples because like there was something, from this country record or this Italian progressive rock record or this, this Curtis Mayfield record that, just like sparks something in you and makes you feel like you can like take this one little bit that like really made you sit up and go, the fuck is this? And like and work it into something new and fresh. So
Where's the most surprising place that you found a good sample or a useful sample?
ooh. I remember once like in college, I found this one sample from this like martial arts movie. It was like some sort of it was like a pizzicato slash like some sort of mallet instrument, and it was like this very like kind of funky melody. And I was like, what if I like, sampled this and, put some drums over it. So I would say, something like that, or, just like even like just being in a record store, because you really never know what's in there, and like, the like store clerk's music brain. Because there's been some times when I've been in the record store, I was listening to a record already, and then I like kind of stopped and I was like, what are you playing right now? Whatever that fucking record is, I need it. So yeah, you can find it anywhere, or it could even be like just a conversation. Like the reason why my album Ascendant came about, and the reason why Taurus Moon came about, and the reason why Aquarius Sun, which were the two previous projects before Ascendant, but they're all like connected, is because one of my really good friends suggested that I look up my birth chart just to get a better understanding of myself. And I was never really like that much into astrology prior to that conversation, but okay, I'll look it up, I'll see. And then just even reading certain bits and pieces of my horoscope for that month or something like that, or just like what the traits are for an Aquarius sun, a Taurus moon, and a Cancer rising or ascendant. That's a part of me that I didn't know was there, or like I didn't acknowledge I was doing. So it just having a better understanding of myself made me a better person and a better producer. So like, you can get even inspiration from stuff like that.
So, Ben, tell me the difference between being an artist and a producer.
Hmm. I feel like they're one and the same. I feel like if you're if you create art at any capacity, whether it be, the visual art, whether you rap or sing, whether you produce, like you're an artist just by default. Even engineers are artists, by default. DJs are artists by default. So cooks are artists by default. You know what I mean? If you create something out of nothing, or if you create something out of, a selection of different elements, no matter how big or small, you're an artist.
Did your music sound the same way when you started as it does now?
Hell no. Hell no. No, 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 no.
So,
My music, geez. It was, I'm not gonna say it was bad, because it wasn't, especially for like where I was, age wise. I was just, working with the elements I had, which happened to be all the stock sounds on Music Generator for PlayStation 1. But it sounds different because I've learned more as I've gone on, and I've studied more as I've gone on. So I think, the more you study, the better your music will be.
what do you do now when you get stuck on something?
I'll just close out Ableton, and then I'll just like go and listen to more samples and just like compile my library, listen out for like different, sample packs that, either friends or, friends of friends have created, and, kind of bookmark things for purchase, or, just like listening to an artist interview, podcasts such as this, and also like, a lot of like culinary video, a lot of episodes of Chopped, a lot of I'll watch The Bear or something like that, or I'll just like watch any sort of like TV show. But as far as like culinary is concerned, like, I'm subscribed to Eater on YouTube. I forget who does Bon Appetit or Mise en Place, but I'll watch like some of those interviews, and just like watch it, because they're like mini documentaries. They'll like follow the head chef or like one of the sous chefs, just kind of getting prepared for their day in the restaurant, and all the prep work that they have to do, the orders that they have to receive, the orders that, from like say, like a bunch of fish or like shrimp or something, and it's like, okay, well, now we have to break down these fish, now we have to devein these shrimp, or shit like that.
Man, what I hear in this that's so cool to me is if you get stuck, you don't try to just force your way through anything. It's just don't force it. There's other ways around. You're just kind of taking it. It's not the time,
Yeah.
and giving
it's
yourself
like,
chances to get.
oh, sorry.
It's good, man. It's just like giving yourself a chance to get inspired in some other place.
Right. And it's also giving your brain a rest, because it's like, okay, I'm really overthinking this right now. Even though I don't want to admit it, I'm overthinking this right now. And the best way to not overthink, or at least that I found, is just to, yeah, give yourself a rest, and have the session be like out of sight, out of mind. Just Apple S or Command S if you're on PC, and like, or Control it. I forget what it is on PC. You know what I mean? Just save your fucking session, close it, and watch something else. But yeah, man, just doing things like that, and just listening to somebody else talk about your art or like something that's, adjacent or parallel to your art. As of late, been finding a lot of that from chefs and from other producers. Like I've always like found it from like other producers and musicians. They're in a routine kind of like I am. They work with ingredients, different from me, but like they care about their ingredients the way I do. So, just watching somebody do their work, and also I cook all my meals, or I try
Yeah,
to.
right on.
So it helps with that as well. But yeah, it really helps with the music.
That's cool, man. Just appreciation for process overall
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
whatever the discipline
exactly,
is. Yeah.
exactly.
Right. And and getting stuck and like your car breaking down, that's part of the process sometimes, you know? It's just not
Hmm.
always going to go. You're just not going to make something you love every day. It just doesn't happen like that.
Facts.
You also mentioned at one point there's no mistakes in music. Can you speak a little bit more
Sure.
about that perspective?
I'll say, there are mistakes just in the sense that like, oh, I didn't mean to do XYZ. But if it happens to turn out into something that's really good that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of, or if it's like, yeah, if it's just something that you would have never otherwise thought of, something that enhances whatever you were trying to do, ultimately it's not a mistake. It just seems, for me at least, and I'm gonna get spiritual for a second, it just seems like something is like guiding my hand. And an example I had of that is when I was working on Ascendant, when it was like fucking 3 or 4 in the morning. I remember I was like, just kind of like tinkering around with a patch from Arturia Analog Lab. And then I was like, because I work on the Ableton Push too, so like all the keys or all the pads were like in chromatic mode, where like it's all like in within the same scale. And I was just like, man, fuck this shit. And I just like kind of swiped my hand across the thing, and I was like, wait a minute, I might have something here. And so it was a track called Water. So I just did like a, and then like I messed with it a whole different ways, just like doing my hand like this on top of the push and like the pads and everything. And it turned out into a melody. So like it was a mistake, in the sense that I didn't mean to do it. But I would say, looking back, I would say something or someone even maybe was like kind of guiding my hand. It was just like, okay, you're frustrated, just swipe your hand across this MIDI controller and see what happens.
You're not the first nor the last person that's going to describe having an experience like that.
Mm.
But there's also something just cool in that, regardless of where you stand on the spiritual piece of you just kind of, you were feeling frustrated and you just embraced it, made a frustrated motion, and that gave you an idea instead of trying to be like, I'm not frustrated, everything's fine, I'm just going to finish this song. You know what I mean? And so there's something also really cool in that and just following, like, I just feel this way right now, you know?
Yeah.
All right, man, before we jump into these quick hits, I just want to ask you if there's any projects you want to highlight and like also where you want to send people to follow you and keep track of what you're doing.
If I had to like really give certain ones, I would say definitely check out Taurus Moon, check out Ascendant. All of these are on streaming. I would also say check out the Raw Rando series, which is like my most stripped down music, I would say, to date. Just in the sense that like, a lot of it is just kind of straight from Ableton, very minimal mixing, very minimal mastering. It's ideas that I've had, some of which were for, previous projects, some of which were, beats I had sent to artists that never went anywhere or they didn't do anything with, but I felt needed to be out in the world, different things like that. So I would say the Raw Rando series and the Birth Chart series, as I call it. You can find all of this on like, any platform, but I highly suggest that you come to my website where you can listen to it all on one page, and it's www.rexmason.com. That's WREXMASON.com.
Boom. You heard it here. rexmason.com. Check out the music, please. I really can't recommend enough you check out this man's music. Truly.
Any vocal artists that are out there listening right now, I do have beats for sale. I'm gonna plug it a little bit if you allow me, Toru.
Yeah,
So if you go to rexmason.com/beats, you'll see it there. There will be, once you go to that page, you'll see some YouTube videos. That's my personal YouTube channel, and it has like all of those beats, available like as like little 30-second previews.
Absolutely, man. And if anybody listens to your music that's released on Spotify or any of the streaming platforms, also here, there's vocalists killing it on there. So if you need evidence and proof, feel free to check out the music as well.
Yeah.
Anything in terms of socials? Is there anywhere you want to point people?
On all like social platforms at WREXMASON. I would say I'm most active on Twitter, but I'm also active on Instagram. I'm still getting around to like, trying to figure out like how I want to present myself on TikTok. You know what I mean? At Wrex Mason on everything.
Right on. Consistency, man. We'd love to see it.
Mm.
So with that, we'll jump into these quick hits. Feel free to be as, long-winded or brief as you like, man.
Okay.
Which DAW do you use?
I use Ableton Live.
Boom. Have you always been Ableton?
No, I started out in FL Studio.
There you go.
And before that, it was Music Generator for PlayStation 1.
Wow. Started on PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
Wow. What made you make the change from FL Studio to Ableton?
At the time, FL Studio was still trying to figure out how they were trying to figure out a native version of the program for Mac computers. And I was just tired of, having to partition my disk to use FL Studio. So I just decided to use Ableton. And so many friends had already used it. Shout out to Nelson Bandela. Shout out my man Alan Close. Shout out Rand Van Dam. Just so many people.
What would you consider your go-to sound or instrument?
Definitely Rhodes, or like a really nice like pad synth.
Do you have a go-to plugin?
Oh yeah, I have a couple. So I would say it's one by XLN called RC20. That's like my salt and pepper right there. Mm-hmm. That I use that on almost every single part of like my process. So, but mainly on samples and sometimes on drums, like for a little bit of texture.
Favorite piece of gear?
Definitely the Ableton Push 2. But I would say the SP404 Mark II is a close second.
3 producers you think everybody could listen to, but you can't say Dilla or Madlib?
Flying Lotus for sure. I would say, well, I'll do an older one first. I'll do Easy Mo B. He, in my opinion, is pretty underrated as far as like music producers go. And I would say recent people, definitely my man Rand Van Dam. He's making really good music. I'm gonna just like list a few names. My man Nothing New. I would say he's so diverse as it relates to just genre bending. He's like the master of genre bending. I call him. He's my avatar for real. For real. He's Aang to me. But I would also say VHVL. I love her work. Shout out Lungs. He goes by Lone Sword, I think, on the production tip, but he has some dope stuff too. So those are the ones that come to mind for now.
Yeah, man, and shout out to Nothing New.
Fully Surfing, Bleak G, Dominic Lennon, and yeah, that's it. I'll cap it because like I could really, I could big people up all day if I could.
And 3 favorite albums.
Ooh, so yeah, Los Angeles by Flying Lotus. Yeah, 18th Letter by Rakim. The cow one is really good, but I'll throw in another one called. Dang, you're kind of putting me on the spot here. I got to get back to you on
All
that.
right, we'll come
I'm
back
drawing a
around.
blank. I'm overthinking right now.
No, we're gonna embrace your approach. We're not gonna force it. We're just gonna come back around.
All right, bet.
Someone else you think I should talk to on this podcast?
Ooh, I would say a producer named by the name of Wildflower. I would talk to DJ Haram. She's a great producer. I forget. Have you talked to Vicky Cassis?
No.
Yeah, Vicky Cassis, amazing producer as well. Her drums, I'll go on record as saying they're better than mine. They're better than the mine and a lot of people. Like her
Wow.
drums are fucking nuts.
Yeah, I'm not hip. I'll have to check her out, man.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Ooh, right now I'm gonna say Fresh. It was a movie from 1994 starring Giancarlo Esposito, Sean Nelson, Nabushe Wright, and a couple other big names. Samuel L. Jackson as well.
What is it
That's my
about that
favorite.
movie?
That one's about this kid who grew up in like, Bushwick, like pre-gentrification Bushwick. He's like no more than like 12 or 13 years old, deals dope, but is also like secretly a chess savant. And like he kind of figures a way out of dealing dope, out of like, his environment by, moving certain people around as chess pieces.
What character from a book, movie, or show, etc., do you most identify with?
Ooh, I would say because I watched it recently, I would say Marcus from The Bear. Anytime he's on screen, he's typically like off in his own world. Sometimes it's to his detriment, but he's off in his own world, like just working on his craft and perfecting his craft. So I would say like I identify with him a lot.
And if you were to do one thing that would break the internet, what would it be?
Ooh, release an undeniably great beat album.
That's a wholesome answer, man. I appreciate it. So that's all I got. Is there anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
I wanted to go back to that album, if you'll allow me. If I could recommend an album or like an EP, I would say Overworked, Underpaid by my man Don Smith. He's currently based in Los Angeles, but he's from Harlem, New York. And yeah, we've done a lot of stuff together, but like he's one of my favorite artists. If you get around to like talking to artists, that's one I would definitely suggest. But as far as like producers, I would also say my man Ram Van Dam.
Thanks so much for being here, man. I'm really glad to know you. And I appreciate just like the enthusiasm, but also like the laid back nature you have for music and just the way that you support other people in the community. And yeah, man, it's very, very apparent and clear. And I appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, man. I love this shit more than anything. I grew up, always listening to music. Like my whole life has just been music. So, and it would be selfish of me to not, big up people that I've met along the way, that have helped me along the way, and that have inspired me along the way. So, and that includes you too, because you be making some fire shit.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for sharing your platform with me, and maybe I'll be back soon. Who knows? Maybe you'll spin the block on Rex. I don't know.
No, man, it's been a pleasure, and the compliment is not lost on me. Thank you very much. It means a lot coming from you. And with that, man, this has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. This concludes another episode of Producer Head, and we will catch you next time. Peace. Before you soak up another episode of Producer Head, please subscribe and drop a rating as well as a review wherever you are listening. This helps Producer Head find its place and its people. After all, without you, there is no Producer Head. Don't forget to head over to torubeat.substack.com and subscribe. This is where you'll be able to find an organized consolidation of each episode of Producer Head along with transcripts. You will also receive the bi-weekly Podium, a top 3 curation of my favorite things found on and offline over the past week. It's a 2-minute read that provides you with a personal soundtrack, ideas, and practical inspiration that you can use immediately. So, tap in and receive the bi-weekly Podium, a top 3, personally curated by me for free. torubeat.substack.com. and subscribe so that you don't miss any updates from me and or Producer Head. That's it for this episode of Producer Head. I appreciate you coming through and being a part of it. My hope is that it helps you unlock a bit more creativity and find progress in a way that matters to you. The theme music is one of my own songs. It is called Room to Breathe and available now on all streaming platforms. Again, for real, thank you so much for being here with me, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode of Producer Head. This has been Toru, and in a way, so are you. Peace.